Hey everyone, Charlie Morgan here, and welcome to Identity Ignition. So, at this point in the mindset training, you understand how belief systems work, you understand how paradigms work, you understand how the concept of reality works. And what we're going to be doing in this video is exploring your place in all of this. We need to discuss identity and self-image. This is something that no one understands, no one knows how it works or how it functions, and it really is the critical key to changing your reality and manifesting a future that is brighter and far more positive than the one that you have right now. What we talked about at the end of the last video, if you remember, in Subjugating Reality, was factual alignment, but we also then went to talk about the idea of self-image and judgment-based alignment as well, which is where your belief systems about how the world works and your place in it, they need to line up with a certain set of belief systems that would give assent to your goal. So remember, when you set a goal, you're basically telling the universe, I want this, and there are conditional beliefs that if you believe and truly hold as true in your heart of hearts, will make it way easier and drastically improve your chances of actually achieving the goal. And so what we're going to be doing in this video is exploring the self and this idea of the identity and really answering the age-old question of who am I? Like, who are you? Like, what actually are you? And how does this thing work? So let's get into it. So we're going to get into a brief summary of Subjugating Reality. We're going to talk about what your percentage chances of success actually are. Like, what is the chance of you succeeding? And is there any point in trying? Exposing the enemy, victimhood, comfortable delusion versus uncomfortable truth. Who are you? So we're actually going to answer the question like, who are you? And you might have a response like, oh, I am, insert your name here. But that's not who you are. Trust me, we're going to get into this. Self-solidification, the conflict of growth, and the becoming self as well. Okay? So let's get into it. So welcome to Identity Ignition. Here we will dive into identity and what it means to have an idea of the self. We'll talk about what is to blame for your lack of success and suffering in life, and build on ideas around belief alignment and paradigm shifts in earlier videos. I'm well aware that you've been through 6-7 hours of mindset training, and we've been very abstract. I'm perfectly aware that it's quite hard to wrap your head around all this stuff, but I promise you, just cling on, because as we continue through this mindset video, things will become more concrete. And what I've been doing for the last 2-3 videos, including this video, is laying the foundations of your understanding of how mindset works. So when we actually come to put it into practice, and when I start giving you things to do, you're way, way, way more likely to do them and actually start achieving positive change. I know that theory isn't everyone's cup of tea, and I'm well aware of that. And trust me, if I didn't have to make these videos, I wouldn't, because they are a bitch to make. This one alone took me like a month. So I get it. Like, you know, not everyone's cup of tea, but stay in the abstract with me, because when we come down to the concrete, everything will make so much more sense. So let's summarize Subjugating Reality. If you haven't watched Subjugating Reality and Achieving Omniscience, the first 2 videos in this mindset training, then you should go and do that now. Now, bear in mind, the summary alone will not suffice. It just won't. I know some of you are trying to like rush through this. This is something not worth rushing, trust me. So just, don't read the summary and be like, oh, I know it, because you don't. If you haven't properly understood and grasped the concepts of Subjugating Reality, then you must go and watch it again. I know it's confusing, and like I said the first time, it might take you a couple of watches to get the hang of this stuff. So if you don't understand Subjugating Reality and Achieving Omniscience, which could potentially be the case, don't be afraid to revisit it and watch it again and again. I'd rather you take a little bit more time and achieve success slower, but actually achieve it for sure, than rush this stuff because you're being impatient. So here's a brief reality check of Subjugating Reality, so a brief summary. So your paradigm is preloaded with 2 sources of bias. So we have psychological and genetic loading. With these 2 exceptions, you are a blank slate. So when you're born as a blank slate. You are biased slightly by your psychology and your genes, but with those 2 exceptions, anything's fair game. And the point I was making with this idea is your life can go in any direction, and you really are a blank slate. And what that means is you really are malleable, and you can, if you had a child and they didn't know anything about the world, you can really take them in any direction you want. You can truly mold them. And people forget this, and this idea, this malleability, this pliability of our identity and our spirit and our paradigm, it doesn't go away. It's still there, and it's still possible to do, but people seem to forget and they get stuck in their ways. And that's the whole point of this mindset training. Now, we also talked about experiences and how initial experiences start the formation of a belief. They come from your environment. And if you recall, we have our physical and imaginary environment. So your physical environment is everything you come into contact physically, and your imaginary environment is everything you come into contact mentally. This isn't a physical environment per se, but within the walls and boundaries of your mind, you are capable of conjuring up things, that ultimately you come into contact with. Although they're not physical, they're not sensory, you're still having experiences. If you close your eyes and have a dream or have a vision or an idea, that is still very much something you've come into contact with and can completely shape your paradigm and inform your belief systems. Your imaginary experiences are a product of the synthesis of physical ones. So you can't really imagine something and have an imaginary experience without synthesizing things that you've experienced firsthand in your physical senses. And if you recall from the last video, the example I used was having a dream. This is a, imaginary experience, a dream about a flying elephant made of lava. That's not something you can experience in your physical reality. But if you take those three ideas of, if you've experienced lava before on the TV or something, and you've experienced an elephant before on a safari or on TikTok, and you've experienced flying, whether being in a plane or something, then it's possible for you to synthesize these things into something greater than the whole. And experiences form beliefs, and obviously by this point we know that beliefs form your subjective reality. And these are the diagrams that I use to sort of solidify that. And you can see how you take some physical experiences or potentially digital experiences on a screen and, put them together. And before you know it, you've got an imaginary experience. Okay. And that ultimately informs your world. And your physical and digital experiences, the things that you come into contact with in your physical environment, if you've been shouted at, for example, then that can absolutely, inform your beliefs, and they heavily do. But what can happen is you can replay that in your mind over and over again and imagine it, and that's an imaginary experience that continuously replays and will continue to solidify the belief. Beliefs can be visualized as a scale of true or false. Beliefs are rarely binary, and they have strength or weakness. So, the strength of a belief or the weakness of a belief is determined and dictated by how easy it is to change or break. So like I said in the earlier video, if you asked the Pope, the Christian, the Catholic Pope, if God was real, then that's a very strong belief, because he's going to say absolutely yes. And that's a belief that you probably couldn't break. It's that strong. But on the flip side, if I asked you, do you like the color purple? You might be like, it's all right. Yeah. Like, I could easily change your mind, right? And so your beliefs, they really sit on a scale of strength and weakness. And confirming experiences make beliefs stronger, and denying experiences make beliefs weaker. So when you have an experience, at least an experience that surrounds or informs an existing belief system, the experience is polarizing insofar as that it either confirms or denies what you already believe to be true. And when it confirms a belief, it denies the opposite of the belief. And beliefs work on this beautiful idea, this parallel scale, where if you believe something to be true, then you immediately believe the other thing to not be true. In other words, you believe the opposite to be false, if that makes sense. So if I said I love fries, and that's true, then I would also say I don't hate fries, okay? And, my point is that every belief has an opposite. And when you load the scale on one side, you immediately load the scale on the other as well, in the exact opposite way. Now, after an initial experience, every experience either confirms or denies the beliefs. And experiences are like rocks that we stack on scales, and every time we have an experience, we're effectively stacking a rock on the true or the false side of the belief system. Some experiences are stronger than others. So some things that, the trick here is experiences that carry strong emotional weight. They are the experiences that have this massive impact on our belief systems. So, if I had an experience, let's say I had a religious experience of God or something like that, and with that came a huge emotional release, then that's a big ass rock. That's a big rock, bigger rock than compared to just maybe going to church on Sunday or going to the mosque on Friday or whatever, right? So, it's entirely possible to have an experience and for that experience to be big. For example, let's say that, your whole life you've been slightly afraid of clowns, and you don't know why, but you just are, and you've told yourself you are, and this is just solidified. And then one day a clown comes along and the clown is, you're terrified of this thing, but then it takes its mask off and it's the nicest person in the world, and then they give you $1 million and you fall in love with them. That's a very strong emotional experience, and it's going to deny that clowns are scary, and so the scale might tip, right? All beliefs exist parallel to their opposite, and all beliefs are paired accordingly. So there's this idea in quantum physics called quantum entanglement, which states that basically every single particle in the existing universe has an opposite and an equal and an opposite. And it's basically the same thing is true. It's called we can say there's a quantum entanglement of your belief systems, if you want to get scientific with it and practical. Not that you need any more complicated abstract terms than I've already given you, but you get my point. So for example, if you believe right now, that money is really hard to make, so the component of reality is money, and the statement is money is really hard to make, you might believe right now that that's true. And the reason that that's true and not false is because you've stacked more experiences to confirm this belief than you have denying experiences. So maybe you've grown up broke, maybe your parents have had a really hard time, maybe you've tried to start businesses, and this is really where people fall short, because if you're coming into this program and you fundamentally believe that money is really hard to make and that making money online is impossible, then everything you do is you're going to basically exercise this belief and try and counteract it, which is not very productive at all. So, we don't want to be doing this, which is why I'm making this mindset training. But if you believe that money is really hard to make, then you will not believe that money is really easy to make. And so anytime you take a belief stance on something, you either believe it's true or false. So if I said to you, is money really easy to make? You'd say no. And that's because you've stacked the scale, is equal opposite, if that makes sense. So beliefs feed back on themselves by creating confirming experiences. This is called a positive feedback loop, also known as amplification, where you have an initial experience, which forms a belief. And that belief forces you to take actions that create new experiences that reconfirm the belief, and around and around and around and around. And so people form very strong belief systems in their life about all sorts of things, and their entire life they seek to confirm that those things are true by trying to find more experiences that confirm them. And if you don't believe me, then we'll just go and do analysis on any belief system you hold. You've probably reconfirmed it over and over again. And beliefs have a lot of utility to the brain because they provide efficiency. So the brain craves efficiency, and what beliefs basically do is they're this sort of really neat, tidy, organized. They're like imagine all of your experiences are like pieces of paper, and beliefs are like these little shelves that you can put the paper into, these little trays. What beliefs do is they act as experience bundles where they stop us from having to remember everything. So imagine you've got 1,000 pieces of paper on food, and what sort of food you like, and what food makes you feel good, and what food makes you feel bad, and what you like and what you don't like, and how your tastes have changed. You've got 1,000 pieces of paper that you could read through. What you could do instead is take those thousands of pieces of paper, open the tray in your mind called food, and put them in and close the tray. And then you have this single belief system about what sorts of food you like, right? That's a bit of a stretch of an example, but you get my point. We bundle experiences into beliefs because basically they're way more efficient. Otherwise, you have to remember all your experiences, which is impossible because there's only so much brain power you've got, right? Everyone has firm beliefs, but no idea why they exist or where they came from. And this is because they just forgot, as soon as you have your experiences and they get bundled into your beliefs, you forget your experiences, and your beliefs effectively replace these experiences, which means you forget why you have these beliefs. And then people get all confused about their life and why they are the way they are and why they are who they are. And then they get all stressed and anxious and depressed, and they feel like life's out of their control. And it simply is purely because they forgot where the hell this belief thing came from. And beliefs are how we map reality, okay? So you can really imagine that life is a big journey from A to Z, right? From where you are now to your goal. And right now, we use beliefs to inform our decisions on what actions and turns to take. Every action or decision that you make in your life comes from your belief systems. It's rooted in your paradigm. And right now, you're alive, right? Which means that your beliefs give you survival. And this is true because you're here right now and you're alive. And all the brain really cares about at a base level is your survival and your ability to live long enough to reproduce. So you act out your beliefs accordingly. Like, your brain hasn't really got any incentive for you to change your belief systems, at least not at a neurochemical instinct level. It doesn't care. It doesn't care that your brain doesn't necessarily care that you're poor. Your chemistry doesn't give a shit that you're lonely or anything like that. All it cares about is that you're alive. And so your brain doesn't like to, change belief systems or fuck around with them too much because of the fear of what happens if you do. Now, obviously this is completely irrational, but you've got to realize something about the brain is it's kind of prehistoric. I'm not trying to insult you with that idea, but your brain's pretty old. The circuits and the way that your brain works is rooted in, long, hundreds of thousands, millions of years ago of conditioning to help us survive on African plains and not die to snakes at night. So when you try and apply this little thing, this brain you've got to the modern day world, you make mistakes and you become irrational, and that's what irrationality is. But my point here is that, your brain loves efficiency. That's why we have beliefs. And your paradigm can effectively be mapped and look something like this. So you can actually, what you could do this, is you could verbalize and articulate every single belief statement you have. Be a bit stupid because you probably, a lot of them you're unconscious of, right? But you could articulate every single belief statement you have and map it. And, your beliefs would fall into one of three categories, being knowledge, self-image, or judgment. And you could really just see your entire paradigm. And what you could do is you could arbitrarily create scales to determine how true or false you thought your beliefs were. I'm not saying you should do this because, doing that for all your beliefs would be insane because you've got millions of them. Maybe not millions. Maybe you do. I don't know. But you get my point. But that's that. Now, your paradigm exists on many levels. So we have a macro paradigm and a micro paradigm. And when we think about our paradigm and the way that we see the world, we can break it down into many levels. And your paradigm will have thousands, maybe tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of micro components to it that, if we add them together, make this macro whole that we know as a paradigm. And certain components of reality have more beliefs and take up more space. This is really interesting because, you probably have a component of reality that means a lot to you, right? So let's just say, for example, that you grew up as a chess prodigy, right? And when you were younger, you were really good at chess, and chess has been your hobby for 20 years. What that means is you're going to have a large aggregate of belief systems about chess, and that's going to be a big bias for you coming into this world. You're going to be more strategic. You're going to think about second-order consequences. You're going to think about sacrifice differently. You'll see the world through this lens of chess because you have such a massive, block of beliefs about it. And these components of reality dominate the paradigm of the individual. This all depends on what experiences you've had, what you've studied, who you've talked to, who you're friends with, where you were brought up, when you were brought up, what your culture is, what your language is. But there are biases. And some beliefs are right and some beliefs are wrong. So this is huge because we've talked about belief systems and everything. And the question that you're probably asking is how the hell do I know what's right and how the hell do I know what's wrong? And what should I believe? And you really don't have to look much further than the idea of alignment. So this is whether or not a belief is aligned with the truth or your goal. So when it comes to alignment, we've got factual alignment, which is is what you believe to be true aligned with the indisputable truth. So, for example, if I said right now, Donald Trump is the current president of the United States, right? That's true. But if I said Hillary Clinton is the current president of the United States, then that's false. And I could potentially be misinformed. I don't know how, but I could be misinformed, and I would not have factual alignment with that belief system. Okay. By the same notion, if I said the Eiffel Tower is the tallest building in the world, it's it's not. But if I didn't know that the Burj Khalifa existed or that any other tower existed, then maybe I'm wrong. And then the other thing, and this is the main thing, this is really what we're going to talk about today, is goal alignment. And this is where what you believe in is in alignment with what you want to achieve. And this comes down to a couple of things, right? So we've got the alignment of your subjective knowledge and objective knowledge, which is this factual alignment, which is pretty easy to grasp. But the really important one is the idea of aligning your self-image and judgment-based beliefs. And this is where you have your goal, and your goal sets conditional beliefs, which means if you believe them, you will act them out, and the action of those beliefs will help you achieve your goal. Primary example, your goal might be that you want to be a millionaire. And I can tell you, as someone who is a millionaire, that one thing that you'll want to believe to become a millionaire is that it's actually possible, and that money is easy to make, and money is abundant, and people are willing to pay high ticket prices. There's lots of beliefs that you need to adopt, because if you don't adopt them, you won't act them out. And so, for example, let's take your belief about money right now. Maybe right now you believe that making money online is hard, and making money online is only for certain people, and it's impossible to make money online if you are this thing or that problem, right? If you believe those things, you're gonna act them out. It's called praxis. It's impossible to not give assent to belief through action. And so there are a set of conditional beliefs that you can adopt and mold yourself into, and basically start creating experiences around. And if you do that, you'll start changing. So if you believe that money is easy to make, and that it's possible to make money online, and that anyone can do it, then you'll start actually trying. And then guess what will happen? Shit, you're going to start making some money. And then you're going to confirm this experience, and then before you know it, you're 7 years down the path, and you're making $1 million a month, and you're nearly at multi-8 figures, like me. That's all this is. It was just a couple of belief systems that I just get in my brain, just switch them around, and then bang. You apply 10 years of compounding to that, and then suddenly you've sat on multi-8 figures in your bank account, and you're like, how the hell did this happen? It works. It really does. Okay, so that's the summary. Let's talk about your percentage chances of being successful. Because right now you might be asking yourself, how does any of this make sense? Or how do I believe in something that isn't true right now in the hopes it comes true later? Because this is pretty hard to wrap your head around, because it's all good and well me saying, yeah, just believe it, bro, and it will happen. But you're like, well, how the fuck do I do that? What if I am who I am right now, and my world is what it is right now, how am I supposed to convince myself and my brain otherwise? Like, if I believe making money is hard, and all I've ever known is making money is hard, how on earth do I convince myself the opposite? That's a very good question to ask, right? The idea of alignment gets confusing, because what your factual reality is right now, your subjective experience, is very unlikely, it almost definitely isn't, aligned with your goal reality. So how do you change your beliefs to suit your goal how do you possibly change your beliefs to suit your goal when your experiences just keep confirming what is already true? Well, after this video and the next one, it will all make sense, I promise. This is what we're trying to answer here. We're just getting into this belief thing. You need to change your belief systems. How the hell are we going to do it? Let's get into it. So, let me ask you a question for a second. What do you think the percentage chances of you becoming successful actually are? And I want you to be realistic here. I want you to be honest with yourself. Like, just write it down for me. You should have a pen and paper, or some way to take a note. Write it down right now, or make a mental note in your head. What do you think the percentage chances of you being successful are? Do you think it's like 100% guaranteed? Do you think it's 50-50? Do you think it's like 10% chance? Like, what do you think the chances are? Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, and you should have this written down now, but the answer is actually 0. You have no chance of being successful. None. Nada. I'm sorry. I know you've come this far in the training. You, in your current state, have absolutely no chance of becoming successful ever. Because if you did, you would have already done it, or you'd be well on your way to success. But it's okay. Don't worry. I'm not going to cause you any panic here, because I'm going to show you who is to blame for this and what is to blame for this, which is basically the enemy responsible for your suffering. So you have no chance, but I'm going to explain why, and we can start building from that, right? So who's to blame? Because there is an enemy, and I promise you there is something that you can point at that is going to explain why you're not successful yet. And, because this thing exists, there's no chance, right? So we need to understand this. So exposing the enemy. Why do you know what you need to do but just can't do it? Why do you set goals and dream up dreams only to give up or not bother? Why are you inconsistent, lazy, paralyzed by procrastination? And why are you so full of confidence and hope one day, but doubt and fear the next? And why does success seem so impossible to achieve to the point where there's no point in trying? Why does this thing seem so far off? Why can't you just start making progress towards a goal, and then when you do start making progress, you just sabotage yourself? Why can't you stick to new habits and get rid of old bad ones that you know you shouldn't have? Why does it feel like there's a dark force holding you back, forcing you to fight an uphill battle? Why does it have to feel so hard? Why do others make so much progress and you get left in the mud? You see the videos of teenagers and people in their early 20s buying Lamborghinis and watches, and you know, why is it so easy for other people but just not for you? Like, why? Does it ever feel like something is just holding you back? Probably. Everyone has a reason as to why they're not successful yet. Pause this video right now and ask yourself, what's yours? What's holding you back? Who's holding you back? How is the world against you? Because it is. And I'll explain why in a second. Have you ever wondered why you're not where you want to be and why success feels like too much of a struggle? Have you ever asked yourself why it's so hard and why it feels like the universe conspires against you to keep you broke and miserable? Well, there's a reason for this. And yes, this reason exists. It's malevolent, it's a dark force and an enemy that is to blame for all the issues you have in your life. It exists and no one knows what it is. And it took me years to figure this out for myself. But once I found it, I could actually face it and overcome it. And I did. And obviously my entire life changed. Now, the thing is that your lack of progress, any sadness you feel, any anxiety you have, any negative emotion you feel is all down to this dark force, this enemy. This force plagues the entirety of humanity, and everyone who isn't happy or lacking in their life is infected by it. And this was my life for years. I would start things, I'd quit and leave them half finished. I'd have confidence one day and fear and doubt the next. I'd want to be successful, but then I couldn't even get out of bed on some days. Everything I tried failed. Nothing stuck, clicked, or worked for me. I'd say I want to be successful, but really I never properly put the work in. I sabotaged my efforts. I often knew what I needed to do, but just couldn't bring myself to do it. You know, I was trying to quit video games for like a year. I was like, why can't I just do this? I'd sedate myself with junk food and video games to avoid the work. I was effectively at war with myself. I lived paralyzed, unable to act, dreaming of what I could be. To change and become successful, I had to confront this dark force, battle it, and win a war. So I've got an action item for you, and I want you to do this right now. Don't put it off. Don't be an idiot. Don't be a dick. Write down the top 10 reasons as to why you're not successful, because then we can see if they're in alignment with the true enemy in the dark force. Do it now. So I've got this document for you here. You can make a copy by going to File and make a copy, or you can write these reasons down on the paper in front of you. I want you to find everything you can blame and write it down, because we're going to reveal this enemy. I'm going to show you why you're not successful and really like what is to blame, who is to blame here. So I want you to write down, think as hard as you can why you're not successful. Fill all 10 as best you can. Maybe there's only one or two, but there should be some answers in your mind right now. And this should be really obvious to you. Just the everyday things you know you blame as to why you're not there yet. You have reasons, you have copes, you have excuses. Don't pretend you don't. Of course you do. You've told yourself this hundreds of times over. I'm not where I want to be because of this person or that or this. There's another way to think. Why are you stuck where you are? So if you can't think of reasons, why are you stuck where you are? And why can't you seem to make any progress? And what's holding you back? Like some examples, this is what I used to say. I'm not motivated. I'm not a motivated person. I don't have a work ethic. If I don't enjoy something, I can't do it. My dopamine system is fucked. Like any excuse you have, any reason, toxic relationship, parental pressure to get a job, wrong friends, too shy, school system, disability, that weird pain in your wrist you get when you write, which is why you can't use a laptop, anything, your internet connection, I don't care what it is, I want to know the reasons. And I want you to write them down right now. There might be more than 10, write them all down and list them out. Pause the video, do it now. So you should have done it. So let's actually explore this enemy and what it is. And I've got some slides for you here to show you exactly what you're up against. So there is a dark force, a savage character in your life. It's the thing to blame for your lack of progress and any miserable situation in your life. All of your problems, all your suffering, all the reason you can't do what you want to do, all these excuses, since the dawn of civilization, people have looked for this thing, trying to pin it down and defeat it. Is it, people ask, is it the government? Is it the politicians? Is it the secret group of people? Is it the government that's trying to, out to get us with the taxes and the food pyramid and the conspiracies and, all these things? Is it the Matrix? Is it a round table of suited dark figures who control the world? Is it the big corporations feeding on our desires and impulses? Is it, McDonald's is why we're fat? Is it OnlyFans as to why we're porn addicted? Is the school system the problem? Is it the education system? Is it the way that the Secretary of Education is building the education system that we're not being educated properly? Is it society? Is it just the way that our culture's built? Is it our parents? Or it's none of these. It's much worse and much more powerful, and you probably have never even thought about it before. I went far and wide looking for this thing. I was convinced there was some conspiracy. I set out for months, years, searching for an answer to try and figure out why I couldn't do the work and who was to blame. I asked myself this. I said, why do I suffer like this? Why do I break down what I built? Why must I be stuck in this doom cycle of trying and failing? Well, I hope you're ready to find out who it is and what is to blame. It's you. That's right. It's you. It's all you. It always has been and it always will be. You are totally to blame. It's all your fault. You are the enemy. And I know that this is a bit of a twist and a bit of a switch, but it is you. You are to blame for all your suffering. It's your fault. It's not your anything. It's not your government. It's not your parents. It's not your IQ. It's not your social circle. It's not your politicians. It's not your disability. It's not your introversion. It's not your work ethic. It's not your community. It's not your country. It's not your class. It's not your internet connection. It's not your boss, your accent, your niche, your peers, your personality, your upbringing, your sleep, your tech skills, your childhood, your market, your niche, your appearance, your office space. It's not your environment. It's not your schooling. It's not your anxiety. It's not your depression. It's not your addictions. It's not your fears. It's not your pains or aches. It's not your age. It's not your race. It's not your sales script. It's not your algorithms. It's not your social media feeds. It's not the news. It's not BlackRock. It's not Mark Zuckerberg. It's not aliens. It's not lizards. It's not McDonald's. It's not porn companies. It's not OnlyFans. It's not the Matrix. It's not your girlfriend or boyfriend. It's not your English skills. It's all you. Look at the reasons you've written down earlier. If these were truly the reasons as to why you weren't successful or had a bad life, then why doesn't everyone who has or experiences these fail like you? They don't. You are the problem, not the reason. So if you wrote down, I'm not successful because I'm lazy, or I'm not successful because I don't have the motivation, well, that would mean that anyone there's people who have achieved success who might not have the highest levels of motivation. You might have written down I'm not successful because my parents are forcing me to get a 9-to-5, so I can't start a business. It's like, well, do you mean to tell me that every single person on the planet who has strict parents who have forced them to get a job hasn't achieved business success? No, there's loads of people that have been able to do that. Loads of examples of people, especially in Eastern culture, where the parents force them to become like a doctor or a lawyer, and then they leave and then they become successful. This is all just bullshit you've told yourself. It's just lies. It's really fucking easy to blame somebody or something. The problem is, and I promise I have your best intentions at heart here, as soon as you choose to do that and blame something, you lose forever. And this is what I was getting wrong. I would blame anything but myself as to why I was unsuccessful or where I didn't want to be. You must come to terms with the fact that where you are in life right now is because of nothing or nobody but you. You need to realize that the thing that you're blaming, these things here, these reasons that you've written down, they are not the reason you're stuck. It's you. It's all you. The doubts, the fears, the dark force, the negative thoughts, the bad thoughts, the problems, they're all you. The truth is simple. All the things you blame are externals, and you give them power and you feel a victim towards them. You're playing the victim, blaming externals. You might right now feel uncomfortable. Maybe you feel angry. Maybe you're irritated or upset at me. Good. The first step to making any sort of progress is this pain and accepting the weight of the responsibility and accountability of your existence. You can't blame anything but yourself. As soon as you do, it's done. It's game over. You've lost. You've got to take the wheel, strap yourself in, and actually be in the driver's seat of your life. Until you admit and accept total and full responsibility for your life, you will never be able to accelerate and go where you want to go. Not taking responsibility for your life is like getting in the car and basically having no control over the steering wheel. You're going to end up somewhere random where you're going to crash. And people do this all the time. Like, people are unsuccessful, people are fat, people are out of shape, people are miserable, people are depressed, people are anxious, and they will blame anything but themselves. It's like, oh, I'm depressed because, I have like a problem with my brain. It's like, that might be true, but for as long as you believe that, you're never going to make any effort to actually change or try and fix your life. Radical responsibility is the cornerstone of success. And until you're willing to point the finger at yourself and really just say, it's all my fault, that's why I'm not successful, you're never truly going to be in control, because control is basically power. Like, if you believe that something is your fault, or you believe that, it's your issue, and you effectively take full responsibility for your life, then once you do that, you can actually start making changes. But right now, if you believe that something else is to blame, then until that thing goes away or changes, which it likely never will, then you're never going to be successful. And you're always going to use it as an excuse as to why you're not there. So if you say right now that, let's say you're addicted to pornography, and you say, oh, the reason I'm addicted to pornography is because of Twitter's algorithm, or because of, MindGeek, which is the company that owns Pornhub, or the reason I'm addicted to porn is because, it's OnlyFans, it's the OnlyFans girls, like, they're to blame. It's like, well, you're going to stay porn addicted forever for as long as you believe that those are the reasons you're not successful, the reasons you're addicted. Until you turn around and say, it's my fault, I control where my eyeballs go, I control what I say on the keyboard, and I control what my algorithms look like by what content I consume and engage with, then it's all your fault. Of course it's your fault. How could it possibly not be your fault? You lay these traps for yourself intentionally and then blame the traps. It's really silly. It's really stupid. Your fault. Understand, your life, whether you know it or not, was built to spec by you. You designed this life, my friend. You didn't mean to, and you might not be aware that you have, but every action you've taken, every decision you've made, every behavior you've acted out, every emotion you've succumbed to, all of this stacked up and bundled is your life. And notice how, who takes an action, who makes a decision, who engages in a behavior, and who gives into an emotion? You. It's you, mate. There's no other way around this. Until now, you've been totally paralyzed, blaming external bodies or things for your lack of success. After all, what's the point in behaving in the right way and taking the right actions if you believe your suffering is not your fault? So this comes back to this example, let's say this person who's porn addicted. This person's not going to bother trying to give porn up because fundamentally they believe the reason they're addicted is because of these companies. And unless the companies fail, then they're going to be addicted. In the same way that, if you think that the reason that you're overweight is because of the government and, the government's, food advice, then until the government changes or until the government changes their nutritional guidelines, you're going to be fat, and they're probably not going to change it. So you're going to be fat. But it's easier for you to say, it's probably my fault for my lack of critical thinking ability and my incapacity to handle my culinary impulses. That's probably why I'm fat. It's probably because I don't exercise because I can't be bothered, and it's probably also because I'm not the smartest person when it comes to nutrition. I'm just making it a point. Sure, some people might be overweight because of their genetics, but even if it was your genetics, you shouldn't believe it's your genetics, because you shouldn't give yourself any excuse or reason to hide behind doing the right thing and engaging in the right healthy behaviors. And you can use this example for porn, you can use it for people who are overweight, you can use it, for example, people who are poor. So right now you're probably broke, you're probably poor, and you're probably like, oh, I'm broke because of the system or the matrix, or I'm broke because of the scammers, or this, and it's the big banks, and it's BlackRock. No, mate, you're broke because you don't know anything, and you haven't educated yourself on money, and you don't know how to build a good product, and you don't have any skills that in any way, shape, or form are conducive to you making money and achieving your results that you want. It's your fault. It's nothing. It's nobody else's fault. It's your fault. Everything is your fault. And I'm preaching to the choir here. Whenever I get stuck in business or in life, I'll always be like, oh, it's this person or it's this. Then I remember, I'm like, actually, you're just being an idiot. Accept the pain and, take on the responsibility and crack on. It's very simple. And just think about it for a second. I mean, how can doing the right thing matter if your government's to blame? How can disciplining yourself to fix your shitty life, what's the point in doing that? If it's your parents' fault? And how can taking action to fix your life Work, if your life sucks because of your mental health. Like people use this, and this is not an easy thing to say because people get very upset by this, but a lot of people, too many people, are using mental health as a shield to absolve themselves of the responsibility of partaking in behaviors that are healthy and that fix their lives. I've been guilty of this before. When I was younger, like I used to be like, I'm really shy, or I've got anxiety. This was when I was a lot younger. I'd be like, I'm never going to make it because I'm anxious. It's like, well, what sort of attitude is that? Pull yourself together, man. Like, simple. People hide behind reasons and objects of blame and use them as shields to discharge themselves of the responsibility of their lives. Some examples in my life, because I've been guilty of this, right? I used to smoke. And the reason I used to smoke is I would blame my friends as being a bad influence. I'd say, my friends are smoking, so of course I'm going to smoke because it's so tempting. Idiot. I used to play video games. I blame gaming companies for that. I used to doom scroll for hours. I blame the social media algorithms. I used to eat junk food. I blame the fast food corporations and Deliveroo. I used to, Deliveroo, this basically Deliveroo is like Uber Eats or like Just Eat, food delivery company. The reason I'm eating all this crap is because it's so easy to get. I used to be skinny. I blame my genetics. I used to be broke. I blame the cost of living crisis and the big banks. I used to be dumb. I blame the school system. I used to get scammed. I blame the scammers. I used to get sick. I blame the doctors. I used to be in a bad mood. I blame the weather. If I was in a bad mood, I'd find any reason I could possibly find except from the fact that it's me. Like, I'm in a really bad mood at the moment. It's like, well, maybe it's because you've been engaging in behaviors and giving into emotional impulses that are conducive to you feeling like crap. Maybe the reason you're depressed and anxious is because you don't have a healthy body, you don't have healthy social life, you don't have healthy relationships, you're not making any money, you're dead broke, you're eating loads of bad food, you're smoking weed, you're drinking alcohol. Like, a lot of people aren't anxious and depressed, they just have shitty lives. And the reason they have shitty lives is because they've got shitty behaviors, and those behaviors are in their control. But the paradox is they believe their behavior is not in their control because of the thing it causes. It's so backwards. It's like, I'm depressed and I can't do anything about it because my depression's so bad. It's like, well, I feel for you, and that might be the case, but has it ever occurred to you the reason you're depressed is because of your actions, and the reasons your actions exist is because you think you're depressed? It's like it's this nasty vicious cycle, and the way you snap out of this and the way that you fix this, in my experience with mental health as well, is by taking responsibility. Hard message to deliver, even harder message to receive, but it worked for me, and I haven't been anxious or depressed ever since I had this attitude, this shift, right? I used to be angry. I blame being bullied. I used to not get sales, business examples, it works on business as well. So I used to not close sales calls. And I blame the leads. But the leads, these prospects or the market, they haven't got any money. But instead of, what I should have done is blame my skill set. I used to not get YouTube views. I blame the algorithm instead of my skills. Couldn't be me, has to be the algorithm. I see this people have YouTube channels like, my videos aren't getting any views. I must be black. I must be what's it called? Shadow banned. Like, the algorithm must have blacklisted my channel. It must not like what I'm saying. It must be the market must not be smart enough to understand me. People say this shit. It's wild. It's their fault. They're not making good videos, right? I used to have poor performance in my team, and I blame the team instead of me. Like, a team is only as strong as its leader. So if my team is misperforming, it's because I'm terrible at managing or I'm terrible at leading. It's my fault. I used to not get appointments. I'd say, it's cold email. It's Google. It's the deliverability instead of my skills. I used to not grow, and I blame the niche instead of myself. Remember, anytime you blame anything that isn't yourself, you lose. You're fucked, period, forever. Understand that responsibility is how we effectively declare war on problems, and you can't win a war if you refuse to fight. The fastest track to success is a total, absolute sense of responsibility. It's the only true way to take control, and if something isn't going your way, blame yourself. It's empowering, and it's almost as if the universe gives you permission to change once you do. Unless you can really look in the mirror and say, it's my fault, I am to blame for this mess, you almost feel like you don't have permission to really change anything until that happens. And after you take responsibility for your life or a problem, you start looking at it differently, and suddenly you feel empowered to change and solve it. Once you actually accept that something is your fault and that the reason that you aren't where you want to be is because of you get this weird magical sort of lift where you're like, holy shit, I can actually do something about this. So there's an action item for you. And this is going to sound weird, And it's going to sound strange and you're probably not going to want to do it. You're going to feel some resistance, but I want you to do this now because this solidifies this point. I want you to go to find a mirror. I want you to look yourself in the eyes in the mirror, point at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself it's all my fault. Admit that you are to blame for suffering and that nothing or no one else is. And when you do this, you should feel some emotions. There might be some anger, there might be some sadness, there might be some relief. You're going to feel a mix of emotions. But you need to truly believe this. Because until you accept this is true and believe this is a fact, that it is actually your fault and the reason you're broke and the reason you're not successful is because of you, we're never going to get anywhere. It doesn't matter how much training I give you. It doesn't matter how good the scripts are, how good the systems are, how much of an expert you become, how good your foundations are. Nothing matters if this isn't in check. So I know it seems weird, but go and do it now. Find a mirror. It's all my fault. It's all your fault. And make eye contact with yourself as you do it. Very empowering thing to do. Do it now. You'll feel very empowered afterwards. Do it now. Don't delay it. Don't judge yourself or feel stupid for doing it. Just do it. You need to accept this. This is the turning point in your psyche. It's hardly much of an ask. And honestly, man, your future hangs on you actually believing this. Don't put it on a to-do list. Don't be like, oh, I'll do it after the video. Just trust me, pause the video and do it now. It is well worth doing and you will not regret it. So I'm just going to give you a second. Go and do it. So moving on to this idea of victimhood, which is kind of what we've been talking about in a roundabout way. Victimhood is a proper nasty thing. And, you know, if right now, you know, up until this point, until you just pointed in the mirror, you know, you had all these reasons. You listed them out, right? You should be able to see them. And if you didn't, then you didn't do the action items and you're an idiot and you should go and do them. But, you know, you had all these reasons and you believed that these reasons were the reasons as to why you're not successful. And you are, if you believe that to be true, you're effectively a victim. Because what you believe is you are a victim of the reasons, and the reason you're not where you want to be is because of the reasons, not you. And what that basically makes you is a victim. And victimhood absolves the individual of accountability or responsibility for the burden of their existence. And victims blame excuses and reasons for their lack of success. So what we've got here is a person, and we've got their current situation in red and their goal situation in yellow. And the clouds that are sort of clouding the goal and clouding the current situation are the reasons or obstacles as to why you are stuck where you are. And the truth is that there are going to be things, and there might be things that have happened to you, or there might be things that you have that hinder your ability to become successful and make it harder. That's true. But they don't have to be absolutely, you know, dominant in your life in the way that you think they are. And so, you know, if you've got like all these reasons, you're like, oh, the reason I'm not successful is this or this or this, or the reason I'm stuck where I am is because this is this. Like, you have to remove the clouds to be able to see these things clearly. And the way that you remove the clouds is you stop giving them the power. You stop telling yourself that they are why you aren't where you are. They are, excuse me. You stop telling yourself that the reason you aren't where you want to be is because of them. And you start blaming yourself and pointing the finger internally and saying that you are the reason. Now, there's two types of excuse or reason. There's internal reasons, right? So there are things that you've done or created that hold you back. These are within your control. So like, you know, let's say that you've got terrible friends, right? Objectively speaking, if you've got a really bad social circle, you know, people that are losers and they just try and bring you down, and they're narcissistic psychopaths that just want the worst for you, and, you know, they manipulate you and hold you back and gaslight you, like, you know, and they tell you you're never going to be successful, then that's a bad thing, right? And it might stop you from being successful or hinder you. But the thing is these are it's internal insofar as it's in your control. You get to choose who you hang out with. So, you know, things like your social circle, your work ethic, your levels of motivation, your intelligence, your social media feeds, like all of these things are in large part, not wholly, but mostly in your control. And, you know, let's say, for example, like, you know, the government, you know, oh, it's my government. Well, have you ever thought about moving country? Now, maybe you can't do that with visas and stuff. Maybe you haven't got the financial resources. But if you really wanted to, if your life depended on it, you could move, right? Or you could at least find a way to not have to worry about it. So this is all in your control. Internal things are truly your fault, and you are to blame for them existing. So you don't get to pick, you know, your parents. You don't get to pick your IQ. You don't get to pick, you know, your proclivity towards negative emotion or anything like that. But you still have, in some large part, a responsibility to not blame those things for the reason you're not successful. Now, external things are things that have happened to you and that hold you back that you cannot control. So like you could have really abusive parents. You could have been born in a war zone. You could have to, do mandatory army service between the ages of 18 and 21, right? You could have been bullied, etc. These things are not in your control, but your reaction to them are. So external things aren't your fault. So I'm not saying that the reason that you have abusive parents is it's not your fault you have abusive parents, but it's your fault that you let your abusive parents stand in the way of you being successful, okay? External things aren't your fault, but it's still your fault if you let them stand in the way of success. So a prime example of this was my first mentor who I did a sales apprenticeship under when I was 17, 18. And he had a chronic pain condition where his body was in a constant state of pain and agony. But he got on with it. He would build businesses and he was a great mentor. And I admired him for it. He could have easily rolled over and excused himself of the accountability. And, rightfully so. I mean, he had like a chronic pain condition where like his body was just burning all the time. Not actually burning, but his brain thought his body was in pain all the time. And he could have just rolled over and be like, oh, you know what, I'll just claim benefits from the government. And the reason I'm not successful is because of this chronic pain. But he didn't. And he could have easily done that and happily been excused by everybody around him because of it with his diagnoses and stuff. But he didn't. He got on with it. And I really respected him for that. And this is why I don't really have the patience all the time for people that bad shit happens, man. Like, you're going to go through life, people are going to die, there's going to be trauma, there's going to be war, there's going to be terrible things, and awful shit's going to happen to you. But awful shit happens to everyone. And there are two types of people in life. People who get what they want and people who do not get what they want. The people who get what they want look at the things that have happened to them and they do not use them as excuses for not having what they want. People who don't have what they want, they have things happen to them and they say, oh, I don't have what I want because of this. It's not the case. If it was like, for example, like let's say that you've got depression, right? Or anxiety. What if you say the reason I'm not successful is because of my depression or my anxiety? I just don't buy it, because I can guarantee you that there are people on this planet who are successful and have financial abundance who have anxiety and have depression. And I can tell you for a fact that it is possible to build a business when you have anxiety and when you have depression. And I know that to be true because I did it. During the first year or two in business for me, I was terribly anxious. I wouldn't say I had a clinical diagnosis per se. But my point here is I'm not trying to point the finger at you and get an egotistical one up on you. I truly have your best intentions and best interests at heart here. But my point is that you just can't blame. You can blame these things if you want, but you won't get what you want. You'll be miserable. And yes, some people truly could be victims. If you take it to an extreme, let's say that you're born with HIV, you're born with no arms or legs, you're born deaf, you're born blind, you're born homeless, and you also have chronic epilepsy, and you're mute so you can't talk. Then yeah, sure. If you're born with these conditions, by all means play the victim, roll over and admit defeat. But I'm guessing that isn't you. My Lord, I understand you're watching this and you've probably been through some shit and you're probably hating me right now or not liking me or you're angry at me for calling this out and, effectively blaming you as opposed to this thing that you've held on to. But the very fact that you're angry and the very fact that this is rooting up emotion proves my point. Because what's happening in your mind right now is you're rationalizing and building an emotional defense. Think about that for a second. Take this feeling or this sort of irritability or this, maybe you don't have any, but maybe you do, right? Take this upset or this negative emotion and ask yourself why this exists. Because if I wasn't, pain exists, what you're feeling right now is pain, right? Some sort of negative emotion. Pain exists as an indication that we want to move away from something because it hurts, because it could kill us. And when you create psychological pain around these things, and when you start creating anger or you start getting upset, what your brain's telling you is move away from this and remove this stimulus because it's hurting me, because it's true. And if it wasn't true, if there was no element of truth to this, why you wouldn't be angry? You wouldn't be upset. If you thought this was total rubbish, you just write off and be like, oh, that's just a load of rubbish. You'd have clicked off by now. But the fact that you're still here and the fact that you're sitting in this emotion indicates to me that you know that this is true and that you're just having an ego response to it because it's your fault and you are your ego, right? So of course that makes sense. So society has conditioned you to believe that it's never your fault, that you're not to blame for any of it. It encourages victimhood. It prioritizes your feelings and doesn't want to trigger your ego or upset you. This is wrong and you must snap out of it. So what you can probably tell is I'm not all that concerned with your feelings in the here and now. I'm concerned with your long-term results and changing your life. And part of me doing that in this mindset training is parting with you some pretty bloody uncomfortable truths. And this is one of them. And I'm not afraid to hurt your feelings or offend you or upset you or be painted as a villain if it means that in the long term, you come out of this better and get better results, okay? So comfortable delusion versus uncomfortable truth. Now, listen, you've got an option here. You've got a choice. It's fine to listen to society and reject my message here if you want to live in a comfortable delusion and go about your life stagnant and unable to achieve any form of growth. If that's what you want, be my guest, click off and stay where you are. I'm not that bothered. I'm just concerned with the people that want to ride with me, right? And take this wave. So you can reject this if you want to. No one's forcing you to accept this as true, but just know that if you do, like, you'll be comfortable, and the pain of this anger and this hatred that you've got, this and fear, this upset, the emotion will go away, and you won't be in any pain anymore. But you'll go back to being in your comfortable delusion, which is where you were before I woke you up with this course and this program. So you can stay there if you want. But if you want to make progress, if you want to grow and become more, then you must reject this idea and admit total, full anti-victim responsibility and personal accountability for your existence. I understand that you may have been through some shit, maybe some trauma and some bad things. Newsflash, so has every successful person. Every successful person has a dozen reasons they could have hidden behind and used as a shield against accountability. Perhaps you are a genuine victim to tragedy, and maybe life dealt you a bad hand. And that sucks, and I'm sorry to hear that. But for as long as you blame it for your lack of success or your bad situation in life, you're never going to make any progress, and things are never going to get better. Now, I've met a lot of people, and I met a lot of people who have been dealt a pretty bad hand, and I've read a lot of people. I've read a lot of biographies, and I've read a lot of stuff about people who have been put through the worst conditions imaginable. And, all these war stories and stuff. And, there's these heroic, courageous stories of people being dealt the worst hands and still getting on with it and growing. I mean, God, how beautiful is that? It's the best thing you can do. Trust me. It's not your fault that these bad things happen to you. So I'm not like, if one of your parents died, or if you were brutally attacked when you were a kid, and it's not your fault. You're not to blame for these external things happening to you. You are to blame for your social circle. You are to blame for the fact that there's an Xbox in your room right now. All these things. But shit happens, and it's not necessarily your fault, but you have a responsibility if you let it ruin your life. So if something bad happens to you, there's a beautiful quote from Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, who I think is probably one of the most qualified people on the planet to talk about this and give this quote. Between stimulus and response, there lies a space. And in that space lies your ability to choose your response, and in your response lies your growth and your freedom. And what that means is basically what he was trying to say is you're going to have some pretty shit times in life, and there's going to be a stimulus, which is something that happens, right? But there's a little space between the stimulus happening and you responding. And in that space, you've got this opportunity to sort of think, hang on a minute, how am I going to let this affect me? Am I going to process it in a healthy way, deal with it head on and process it? Or am I just going to let it roll? I'm just going to roll over and let this thing wash over me, and I'm just going to succumb to it. And now the reason that I am where I am is because of this thing. It's a harsh message, but you need to hear it. Understand, you can pick the comfortable delusion of blaming your misery and bad situation on an external circumstance and stay miserable with a false sense of comfort, which is basically living a lie, or you can pick the uncomfortable truth, sit in the pain for the short term, but have a lifetime of happiness. Take the wheel, suffer through the work, and escape your miserable situation. It's like the Matrix, right? Red pill, blue pill. If you aren't where you want to be in life, it's your fault. This means you are the problem, you need to change. You lack something or have done something that's preventing your success. You're at fault. Something about you needs to change in order for your life to change. All those reasons and obstacles exist because you're too bad to solve them or overcome them. And that's a fact. No, I'm not successful because of this and this and this and this. It's like, well, there's plenty of people on the planet that have this and that you've got that are still successful. So I don't really understand how you can think that those things are the common denominator here, because they're not. And I know that this is true because it worked for me. And I've personally overseen thousands of personal and business transformations from my paying clients in the last 7 years. So, I've overseen literally thousands at this point. I think more than 3,000 clients we've signed into EasyGrow, for example, alone. And I've been toying with this mindset thing and how harsh I should be with this responsibility thing, right? But what I can tell you is, having had more than 3,000 people pay me $10,000 to $20,000, $30,000 sometimes for advice and consulting on this stuff, on this mindset stuff, the more harsh I am and the more direct I am with this responsibility thing, the better results they get. So this is from a place of love, right? You know, people from Easy Grow, they come from all sorts of backgrounds with plenty of baggage and more than enough external circumstances to blame for their lack of success. But the biggest needle mover in the success of our clients isn't to change their acquisition systems, their sales scripts, it's in them. And that's why the Easy Grow mindset training has always been so powerful. I can give you some examples, right? So, you know, here we are on the Easy Grow YouTube channel. And just to show you, like, you know, we've got hundreds of examples of people who, you know, aren't really making any money. Like this guy here, Safwan, 1K a month at the beginning, then 10K a month in 6 months. Or Ben, you know, I know this seems like an Easy Grow ad and, you know, kind of partly is, right? I've got to slip it in here and there. You can forgive me for that, right? But, you know, Brian's a perfect example, 0 to 10K a month in 14 months. Like so many examples. I've seen this happen literally thousands of times. And the reason that I know that this responsibility thing sits at the cornerstone is because when you watch these interviews, people talk about the mindset training and they talk about this little paradigm shift they had. So anyway, you can check that out on your own time. I don't want to overpitch you, but you get my point. And there's the quote from Viktor Frankl. So for example, when I was 18 years old, this is a good example. This is a real-time example. I was talking to an 18-year-old kid. I think he's actually 20 now. I think he's a little older. But I was talking to this kid who wants to start a business. And he asked me, he said, what motivated me, as in like what motivated you? So he asked me, what motivated me at the start? Because like, why was I motivated to be successful when I was 18? And I said it was because I was bullied and didn't want to repeat this with a boss. And he turned around and said, well, I don't have any trauma. I wasn't bullied. So I guess I won't make it because I don't have any motivation. And that's why I'm not successful yet. So he blamed his lack of trauma for his lack of motivation, which was basically absolving himself of any accountability for the future. It's the easy way out. And I find it disgusting. And I immediately lose all respect for anyone who does this. Now, it's easy to do this. Like once you've received this information that I've just given you, you know, you've sort of been given this little pep talk, so to speak. Now that you know, like, you shouldn't blame anything else. Up until now, like, you know, you didn't know this. You weren't really aware that this was a thing, right? Maybe you were a little bit, but, you know, you've been playing the blame game for long enough. And how's that worked out for you, mate? Probably not very well, which is why you're watching this video, right? Time to change. And that's why this week 2 mindset training exists. We've got to change you. We're going to work together to completely change you so we can change your life. This is all about total ownership. So, you know, I get it. You might have had some bad things happen to you that aren't your fault, but they're your problems, whether you like it or not. And you need to take responsibility for them. And you need to feel a sense of ownership over them. And you need to overcome them. You either own your problems or excuses, or they own you. There's no in between. Like, this is really pretty much hits the nail on the head. Like, you can either decide like, oh yeah, these issues are mine and I'm responsible for them. And the reason I'm not where I want to be is because I've been letting them stand in the way. Or you can turn around and just say, I'm in a bad situation because of these things. Like it's so apparent. So this then begs the question of who the hell are you? Because at this point, like, I've kind of just ripped you a new one really by telling you that it's all your fault and pointing the finger at you. And to be fair to you, you've just kind of sat here and tanked that out for a minute. So I appreciate your willingness to put trust in me and bypass your ego and all that stuff. But if we know that it's your fault and we know that the enemy is effectively you, well, then we need to know who you are. And this is not an easy thing to define because you're sat here thinking, well, I know who I am. Like, you know, this is my body and this is my face and this is my name. Nuh-uh. It's a bit deeper than that. So you have met the enemy and the enemy is you. But who are you? There's a quote from Sun Tzu, who wrote a book called The Art of War, which has been used for generations of military practice, and the quote goes, if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And what Sun Tzu basically meant here is like, you know, if you know who you are, so you know what your issues are, and you know who you're up against, then you can predict pretty much any outcome. And the point I'm making here is, in order for you to defeat the enemy, which is basically defeating yourself and kind of slaying your own dragon, so to speak, you need to kind of know what you're after. Because it's kind of like an invisible enemy right now. Like, you know it's your fault, but what are you? What is the self? What is this thing that you're grasping onto that you've just built up and conceptualized? Like, how the hell do we defeat this thing? Like, you know, it's kind of like with COVID-19 and the coronavirus, when, you know, I think Donald Trump referred to COVID-19 as like the invisible enemy. Like, you can't really see this thing, you don't know what you're fighting or what the hell it is about. That's what the self is. So in order for us to defeat this thing, then we need to understand it. So who are you? This is an age-old question that humans have been trying to answer for thousands of years. You know, we look out into space and we look out at the universe and, you know, we're like, what are we and why are we here and who am I and I need to find myself and all this stuff. The thing is, when I say to you, who are you? What you'd probably answer and what your typical response would be is, well, my name is Charlie and I live in London and I am a consultant. These are my social media profiles and here's my passport or my driver's license to prove my identity. But that's not really who you are, is it? You're not your name. Your name is just a bunch of random sound waves synthesized into meaning. You're not your body, because your body is just flesh and blood and bone and organs. You're certainly not your body. You're not your face, because your face is just some angles and structures and some shapes. You're not your appearance. You're most certainly not your Instagram profile, which is just a screen with some pictures of your body and your face on it. You're not your headshot on your passport. You're not your driving license. You're not your passport. All of these things are just symbols that you were given to identify with yourself or identify yourself within a crowd. So who the hell are you? Like, what is this thing, the self? Like this idea of the identity, this thing that you're aware of, but you can't really put your finger on. Well, the cool thing is we've already answered this, and it's all to do with the belief scale. So do you remember this little thing? This little diagram here? Well, here's what you are. So we have our map of subjective reality, our map of our paradigm. We have our knowledge, judgment, and self-image based beliefs. But to put it simply, what you are is this little triangle here. So if I just zoom in, it's this. So we have our self-image beliefs, and the aggregate of all of these beliefs is our identity. Simply put, the idea of yourself or the idea of your identity is the sum collection of all the beliefs you have about yourself. In other words, you are what you believe you are and nothing more. Let that sit for a second, because that should hopefully hit you. This is you. You're just a collection of belief systems. You are literally what you think you are. And I invite you to challenge this idea, because I challenged it for years. I've thought about this long and hard for a very, 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 very long time. Yeah, there's other theories in psychology, like you've got shadow work and stuff, but that doesn't really define who you are. Like your identity, this self-image you've got, this sense of self, like what could it possibly be beyond what you believe it is? In other words, you've just gaslighted yourself into thinking you've got a fucking identity. Like it's just, you are who you believe you are. All the scales you have about your identity are packed into a neat, tidy segment of your paradigm called your self-image. And this is basically what makes you, you. This is what makes you unique and gives you your sense of self. And this is what gives you that sense of this is me, or this is not me, or I love this, or I hate this, or that's mine, or that's not mine, or I associate with this, or I do not associate with this. Everyone goes through life saying or asking, who am I? Or I want to find myself, or I want to know myself. Well, you don't really have to look any further than what you believe to be true about yourself. You don't have to go to Thailand or Bali to find yourself. You just have to ask yourself, what do I believe to be true about myself? You quite literally map, or could map, your identity and self by looking at all the beliefs you have about yourself in scale form on one big picture. We are simply what we believe ourselves to be. That, like this identity you have, this sense of self, is nothing but the aggregate of everything you believe to be true about yourself. That's it. It's not this scary, celestial, weird being that doesn't make any sense. It's not this, horrifically complicated unconscious force. It's not this wonderful product of evolution. It's just simply all of your experiences related to you and your self-image stacked together. And so when someone says, what am I? Well, you are the collection of what you think you are. You are what you think you are. And this is why we're so heavy on the belief systems in this training. This is why I'm spending so much time on this belief thing. Because if all you are is a collection of belief systems, then in order for me to change you, I need to change your belief systems. Because if you change all of your not all of them, I don't need to change all of them, I just need to change a few. But if you change your major self-image beliefs about your relationship with money, your relationship with success, your relationship with abundance, your relationship with the market, all these things, if I can get in there and just tinker around and just play around with your brain a little bit, we'll see drastic changes. Because remember, this training has been built to help you achieve a goal, and it's been built to help you achieve a new reality. And the way you go about achieving that reality is by alignment, which means where your belief systems are aligned with what your goal demands and has set the conditions of. So if you want to be rich and successful, you better bloody hope that you have rich and successful beliefs. And that's why, you need to change your self-image, because right now your self-image is probably poor, broke loser, or I don't want to be harsh, but probably something along those lines, right? Trust me, I was one once. I know how it feels. And if that's your self-image, then you're never going to try and change. So we need to change this, okay? So now we need to talk about self-solidification. This is really important. Now, the vast majority of people think that they cannot change. And this is kind of like a mind virus that has really swept through the world in the 21st century. Now, I call this self-solidification, which is basically where everyone thinks that they are stuck as they are, who they are, unable to change. It's a very, very powerful force. Their belief systems have become so strong that they think that this is just who I am, and they don't even entertain the idea that there could be more. It's crazy, but this is what people do. They allow their identity to effectively solidify into this rock hard thing that they can't change. And here's the issue. People try to start businesses as themselves with their current sense of self and their current identity and their current belief systems about their self-image. The business then fails because they were simply not the person who could make it successful. And then they blame the niche, they blame the business model, or anything else but themselves. Maybe you've tried to start a business before and maybe you haven't succeeded with it. And it's almost guaranteed certain that instead of blaming yourself and your lack of competence, you blamed the business model or the niche, or you said, oh, that's just not for me, right? E-commerce isn't my thing. What a load of rubbish. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. This is what Einstein says. But I would replace this or create an alternative quote that says that insanity is being the same person over and over again and expecting different results. So we see this a lot with people in the online space that hop between business models. Me and my business partner, we call them model hoppers, which isn't as glamorous as you think it might sound. We call them model hoppers, where people try all these different business models and then they quit and they don't succeed. And they try another one, quit, don't succeed, try another one. And the thing is all those business models are perfectly viable because there's many thousands of people, tens of thousands of people in those models that have become millionaires doing it. So when these people come in, they're not successful, they blame the model. It's not the model, it's their fault, okay? And they go to the next business model expecting a different result, but it's them that's the problem, which is why it doesn't work. So self-solidification is by far the biggest psychological tragedy of our generation. Self-solidification is a psychological condition so common that it hides in plain sight from the everyday observer. Once aware of it, you will see it everywhere in others. Those blind to the true nature of the self are infected. Awareness is a cure. So self-solidification is basically what happens when you assume an identity and you accept a sense of self. So, if you think about who you are right now, you might say, oh, I'm outgoing, or I'm shy, or I'm rich, or I'm poor, or I'm smart, or I'm dumb. You've got all these adjectives that you use to describe yourself. And, you attach yourself to all these different components of reality. And the tragic thing is you believe it. Of course you believe it. You've been told to believe in yourself. And so right now, you have a pretty shitty self, maybe. Maybe you don't, right? Maybe it's a good self, but there might be parts of yourself and parts of your identity that are flawed and that aren't healthy or productive or good or conducive to success. And you've just accepted them. You haven't given a moment's thought to the fact that you could change them. If you're overweight, someone might just say, oh, I'm fat and that's just the way I am. And I need to love myself because my immediate emotional state takes priority over my long-term goals. It's ridiculous. It's fucking insane to me. I define self-solidification as a devastating lapse of judgment in the judgment of the mass of society, whereby one believes that oneself is static, unable to change, and at the mercy of the reality that is the manifest of their unpliable identity. In simpler terms, it's a total lack of awareness of the human capability for complete transcendence and change. You can change. Get this through your head. You can change. Because, guess what? You are your belief systems, and you can change your belief systems. So if you can change your self-image belief systems, you can change yourself, and in doing so, you will change your behavior and your decisions, and therefore your life. Your identity is raw potential. Remember, when you were born, you were tabula rasa. You were a blank slate. You might have had a couple of biases from your genes or your psychology or your environment, but your identity is raw potential. You were raw potential. You just didn't realize that you could control this thing, and you've let your life get completely out of hand, and now you're living a pretty miserable or unhappy existence, or maybe just a subpar average existence, because you didn't realize that you could change or that you had control over this. Partly because you never blamed yourself. But you start off as raw potential, and you still are. You just have to remember that you are. You have like clay, like your reality is your clay. And your biggest downfall up until now is that you forgot it's malleable. You have the ability to mold it. And kids know they can do this, right? So if you ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? They'll give you 100 answers. But if you ask an adult, what do you want to be when you grow up? They say, well, I've already grown up and I already am. I have become something, therefore I cannot become something else. It's insane. It's ridiculous. It just, when I figured this thing out, I was like, oh my God, like there's hope. Because deep down, unconsciously, you understand that you are the root of all the problems, and that, your life's not going to change without you changing first. But you know this base truth because you're still listening to me. But you're just so like in your own head and your ego that you just don't want to believe it, and therefore you don't act on it. And it's crazy. You can change. Of course you can change. Of course you can. Of course you can mold your identity and switch. But instead you let the psychological pandemic that is the victim mentality charm you, all while being sold on and accepting the psychologically cancerous falsehoods disguised as adages such as be yourself, stick to your roots. After all, you are who you are, chants society, so stay in your lane, be true to and love yourself, and don't be someone you're not, right? These are sickening words to someone who understands the true nature of their self and identity. This shit's insane. Like, just be yourself. Stick to your roots. You are who you are. Love yourself. Why the hell would you love yourself? Look, we've just established that you are to blame for all of the problems in your life. If right now you're unhappy and you're miserable and you're a little anxious and things are bad, why would you love the person that did that to you? Like, imagine that there was someone in your life that just constantly made your life miserable and was responsible for every bad thing that happened to you. And you're in a bad way, and the reason you're in a bad way is because of this person. Would you love that person? No. You'd probably really hate that person. You'd want them to change, right? Do not just be yourself. Now, if you want to be yourself, that's absolutely fine. But understand that if you wish to be yourself, that comes at the sacrifice of your goal. Because if you go after your goal as you are who you are right now, you will not achieve your goal. Because your goal sets demands and conditions for your psychological transcendence. And if you're not willing to meet your goal at the level it needs you to meet it at, you will not be successful. We see people undergo drastic change, but attribute their change to talent, luck, or something mysterious. Because we can't see our potential, we can't see how others have manifested theirs without some explainable force. So when you see someone undergo a massive change, you say, oh, it must be because they're talented, or they got lucky, or it must be manifestation or something like this. No. What happened is they changed their belief systems to change their behavior and their decisions, and therefore change their life. Throughout our life, we are told, be your authentic self. What? I don't get, I know I'm getting a bit passionate and a bit riled up here, but what the hell? Like, why on earth would you want to be yourself if you're not happy with yourself? It's like, okay, here's the identity that life has prescribed you. You do not like it. It is causing you pain and misery. It's all right. Just be it. Just accept it. Why, just that's just who you are. Just stick to your roots. Stick to your guns. Stay in your lane. It really, in case you can't tell, it really pisses me off. Like, be true to yourself. Stick to your roots. Don't forget where you came from. Be proud of yourself. I mean, oh my goodness. People say this as well. And people say this with good intentions, like your teachers, your parents, your peers. Love yourself. It's a nice sentiment. But you can either have your goal and be in some pain for a while until you get there, or you can have this little delusion that, for some weird reason, you are emotionally infatuated and overjoyed at the premise of the identity that creates the very misery that you hate. It's beyond me as to why people accept this. Be who you were meant to be. Just be yourself. It's ridiculous. As someone who's actually been through, like, I figured this stuff out years ago, and it was the cornerstone of my success. And now that I've been through this journey, and I'm still going through it, right? But now that I've actually got some experience under my belt, I've rejected these ideas. And now that I'm sat from this perch of like multi-8 figures or success or whatever financial success you want to call it, I just can't stress enough how true this stuff is and how dangerous these ideas are. Like, just be yourself. Okay, well, let me tell you what happens if you be yourself. Your life stays the same. You stay exactly where you are in this exact state here and now. Why? Well, because everything is your fault. Your life was built to spec by you. And so if you continue being you in your current state as yourself, then guess what's going to happen? Nothing's going to change and you're going to stay as you are. So if you want to just be yourself, you must accept that you will continue getting what you want, getting what you get, not what you want. What you have right now is because of you. Nobody else. It's not the government. It's not the Matrix. It's not some big corporation. It's all your fault. So why would you want to continue being that if you're not happy? The problem is, as we discussed earlier, is the current version of yourself quite literally has a 0% chance of being successful. So do you remember earlier? This is going to come full circle. Remember when I told you there's a 0% chance of you being successful? I'm talking about you right now. I'm not talking about the version of you that's evolved and has adapted and changed. I'm not talking about you with your new belief systems and new behaviors and decision-making capabilities. I'm talking about you right now. There is a 0% chance of you in your current state of self to become successful. Nada. None. So why would you stick to it, be proud of it, or love it? I don't know. There's no chance. If you're not willing to sacrifice your identity for your goal, then your goal will become the sacrifice. Now, the good news here is we can change, and I'm going to show you how to change, and I'm going to show you how to completely change your entire identity. Like, when I look back at myself when I was starting, like that version of me, when I say myself, I'm referring to the past snapshot of my identity, all of my belief systems aggregated at that point in time when I was like 18. I don't even recognize myself anymore. Like, my belief systems and my self-image has shifted so drastically that I don't think a single neuron in my brain fires the same way. I don't think there's a single, like, there's not a single neuron in my brain that even comes remotely close to pinging the same way it used to when I was 18. You can change. But what we want to do is design a character or a person, which we'll do in the next video. We design a character or a person that would easily achieve the goal, and then we become that person and we change into that person. We start talking like them, we start acting like them, we start deciding like them, we start behaving like them, and we become them and we embody them. And then when we become that person, our chances go way up, way, way up. Imagine imagine if you had the capability of Jeff Bezos. Of course you'd be successful then. You can change. But if you want to stay with where you are right now, then there's a 0% chance. And that's why earlier, up here, I told you, I said, look, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the answer is 0%. And the key was this: you, in your current state, have no chance of becoming successful ever. Because if you did, you'd have already done it. You've been this person for long enough. Don't pretend you haven't. You've had these proclivities and these issues and these beliefs and these behaviors and these habits for a pretty long time now, probably a couple of years at least, right? So I can tell you that if who you were right now was capable of doing it, then you'd have gone and done it. And the fact that you haven't indicates to me that there is a 0% chance of success. So the conflict of growth. Most people live their lives paralyzed as who they are, unable to behave in ways incongruent with their identity. Their unconscious desperately sets goals in an attempt to get the conscious to realize transcendence and change is possible. So here's the beautiful thing, and it is gorgeous and it is beautiful. Let me explain it to you. You're going to fucking love it. You are paralyzed as who you are right now. So you up until now, you didn't really know this, but you had this tragedy of psychological self-solidification where you just thought, this is me. And that's why, by the way, you have so much doubt and fear and little faith and little hope in your ability to achieve success, because you know you're not worth it. You know that in your current state, you're like, oh shit, like this, I'm not smart. I don't have money skills. I don't really know how to sell. I don't really know anything. Like, yeah, I'm not going to do very well. And then when you try and start becoming successful, you just sabotage your efforts because you believe there's no point, because you're not worth it, right? But the cool thing that happens is this, and this is beautiful. There's a deep unconscious part of you that wants to grow and wants to succeed. And that's the part that is listening so intently to my voice right now. I'm talking to a deep part of you. And what this part does, this deep unconscious part, let's call it the growth component of you that wants to grow and succeed, it sets goals. Because where the hell does a goal come from? Where the hell does a dream come from? Why do we want more? Why do we want to grow and succeed and develop and become and evolve? Where the hell does that come from? You just wake up one day and think, I want 10K a month. That's weird. Like, if you ever think about where these things actually come from, like, they're very strange. And the cool thing is well, it's not cool. What happens to most people is they have this sense of self. Then they start getting this weird goal bubbling up where it's like, oh, 10K a month, or become a millionaire, or become online, or go successful, or whatever, successful online. And what happens is they look at the goal and the dream through the lens of their current identity and think, that's not me. That could never be me. That's not me. I am who I am, and I have to be myself and love myself. And I just don't see myself going after that. Instead of looking at, like, taking the perspective of the dream and then analyzing themselves through their dream. So what most people do is they analyze their dream through themselves, and they pick what they want to do. This is the point. They pick what they want to do, and they pick what they think they could achieve based on themselves. But what very successful people do is they look at their dream and their goal, and they pick who they need to become based on their goal. The goal and the dream sets the conditions for the identity, not the other way around. If you want to play the game of trying to pick what you should do in your life based off of who you are, you're very limited and constrained, because your psychological power is remarkably constrained, and you've got pretty severe boundaries around that because you're not very developed, right, as an individual. And I don't mean that in an offensive way. I just mean that you don't know much yet, right? At least in business or in life. And so when this dream, this beautiful little goal pops up out of your unconscious, take its perspective and look at yourself and ask yourself, what would I need to be to achieve this? Instead of the other way around. Because what the ego screams for and what the ego misunderstands as dreams, disregards as impossible. You have this goal that pops up out of nowhere. One day you get this weird surge of motivation to grow. This growth development part of you is just screaming at you, like, wake up, please wake up. Like, stop bowing down and accepting this self-certification and just please develop me. It's what it's basically asking when it sets a goal. But you look at the little thought or the dream or the goal, and you just say, oh, I wish I could do that, or oh, in my dreams, or oh, that could never be me, instead of taking the bull by the horns and looking at themselves and saying, oh, what the fuck do I need to change about myself to get this to happen? Whew. Okay. Goals are, by their nature, transcendental. To transcend means to go beyond. You need to go beyond yourself. You need to go beyond who you are right now. You need to develop your identity and develop your character and sense of self to something larger. And this should excite you and this should speak to you. And the way that you do this is you have a goal, and your goal draws you towards it. And as it draws you towards it, it draws you away from your current sense of self. And this, by the way, is a bloody painful thing to try and do. This is going to suck. Make no mistake. This is beautiful and it feels amazing. And it's the most rewarding and psychologically gratifying thing that I've ever found to do ever in the history of my life, period. But it hurts. And there's going to be a lot of pain. And in later videos, we're going to explore how to deal with this pain and, how to manage this transformation. But that's what you need to know for now. This means the following, and this is not a sentence I'm delivering lightly. In order to achieve your goal and change your reality, you must become the person that can. We do not achieve goals. We do not achieve dreams. We achieve characters. Senses of identity and self that solidify and force the manifestation of the outcome we desire. Never aim for the goal or the desired outcome. Aim to become the person that can easily achieve the goal. By changing yourself, you will achieve what you want. This is a really straightforward idea. Like, ask yourself, and this is when you wrap your head around this idea that you can change, this all makes sense. The success thing makes so much sense. It's so fucking easy. Think about it for a second. Let's say you want to make 10K a month, right? You want to make $10,000 per month online with a consulting or service-based business, like a sort of high-ticket business like the one I'm teaching you to build here. Ask yourself, what would that person be? What beliefs would they hold? What skills would they have? What character traits would they have? How would they talk? How would they carry themselves? How would they think? How would they act? How would they behave? How would they make decisions? You can figure that out. It's pretty easy, right? Just what would a successful person do or think, or you can reverse engineer that by watching podcasts, by listening to my videos, by watching these videos, and you can figure that out pretty easy. All you then have to do is start acting it and start behaving like that. And what will happen is you'll become this person. And what happens is when you become this person, the goal just happens. How could it be any other way? If you were the person that could easily achieve 10K a month, then you would easily achieve 10K a month. You don't go after the goal, you go after the character. You go after the identity. You chase that fucking thing down. And that's how you become successful. Goals are just these little reflections of our senses of self. Your reality is a mirror. Like when you look around you and you see what you have and you see what you think and what you believe and you see the current state of your world and how it exists, it's a mirror to your belief systems, and it's a mirror to your identity and your character and all these things that encompass your psychology. And therefore, if you want to change it, you have to change your character. The issue is there's a big conflict right now between who you are now and who you need to be to achieve the reality you so crave. So let me give you some examples. Let's make this tangible, shall we? So here I am at 18 years old, and this is a picture of me. I'm making $1,000 a month. This guy is clueless. He knows nothing about how the world works, nothing about business, nothing about making money, nothing. This is why I get so passionate about these videos, because I was exactly where you are. To a T. You could put us in the same room and we get along because we're so similar when I was 18, right? I was confused and anxious, didn't have any skills, I'd eat junk food all the time, play video games, engage in bad habits. This was me. I can't stress it. I literally was where you are. To a T. And now I'm where you want to be. And therefore, I know what you need to do to get there, which is why I'm making this course and why I get so bloody passionate about these videos. But this idea, this self-solidification, this idea of the evolution of the self-transcendence, going beyond yourself, man, it really was the secret. It really was the big fuck off massive needle mover that completely changed my life above anything. Above the scripts, above the copy, above the ads, above the business model, above hell even the YouTube videos or the brand. It was all about this beautiful, clear understanding that who I was not who I had to be forever, and that I could change, and I could literally decide in my mind, I want to become this person so I can achieve this, and then go and do it. And I actually did it. I wasn't born clever. I wasn't born with the ability to make 3.5 hour long videos on complicated abstractions about reality and psychology. This wasn't something I was born with. I wasn't born with the capacity to, make content or sell. I learned this stuff, and I learned it because I had to become this person to achieve my goal. It's all been intentional, and it can be done. So here I am. Then, 21 years old, 3 years later, I'm making $100,000 a month. This guy understands a bit about business and is a millionaire. He's got really good at high ticket sales, and his company, Northflow Consulting, is getting a lot of traction in the gym niche. I'm starting at this point, he's starting to learn about management and leadership. He's starting to develop. He's learning ads, funnels, and more. He's moved out of his parents. He's financially stable. He's independent. Okay? So I started developing. And then here I am at 23 years old, so 2 years later. At this point, I'm making $250K a month. This guy is starting to become a force to be reckoned with in the consulting and client acquisition space. He's well read, quickly becoming a competent manager and leader, and is now at this point able to build insane products. Circa easy growth. He lives in his dream apartment. He's a millionaire, multi-millionaire at this point, a fair few times over, and has his shit together. And then if we fast forward another 3 years, here I am at 26 years old. I'm making $1 million a month. This guy knows a lot more about business. He's leading an industry. He's turned thousands of people into 6, multi-6 and 7 and multi-7-figure entrepreneurs from nothing. He's decisive, competent, and leads a team of talented killers towards fulfillment of a vision. He lives in a beachfront mansion on the Palm in the sun and has 3,200 clients. I just actually moved to London, to a penthouse in London, but either way, what the fuck happened here? Like, how on earth do you go in the space of not even a decade from this to this? And I'm sure that by the time I'm 30 and revisit all this stuff and this training, I'll be way further ahead. And if I'm not, it's because I stopped changing and stopped evolving, and that would basically mean death for me, so I'd rather not. So what the fuck happened here? You know? Same face, slightly worse hairline, same passport, same driver's license, same hometown, same family, same name, but totally different man. This is what I mean when I say that you are not these things that you think you are. Totally different man. My self-image at this point is a completely unrecognized. It's so developed in contrast to what it was at the beginning that you wouldn't even recognize me. Like, you know, if you sat down and you mapped out my self-image map with all these belief systems like this, and you put 18-year-old Charlie and 26-year-old Charlie next to each other, you wouldn't even recognize. There'd be so many differences that it would be insane, right? So this person wanted to be a millionaire, but it was impossible for him to achieve it. And for this person, making $1,000 a month was easy. So at this point, I knew how to make $1,000 a month, and that was it. And I'm not even joking, $1,000 a month. And this person wanted to be a multi-7-figure entrepreneur, but it was impossible for him to achieve it. For this person, though, 7 figures was easy. So this person got to, 100K a month, 7 figures, and became a millionaire. But this person couldn't get to multi-7 figures, so he had to develop into this person. And this person wanted to be an 8-figure entrepreneur, but it was impossible for him to achieve it. But for this person, multi-7 figures was easy. And this person wants to be a multi-8-figure entrepreneur, but it's impossible for him to achieve it. So right now, I'm at 8 figures, right? So that sort of 8-figure mark. And I want to get to multi-8 figures. And all I have to do is go through the exact same process and transformation that I went through at all these previous stages. But for me right now, 8 figures is a walk in the park. I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly how to do it, exactly how to sustain it and build it and grow it. But I need to change and adapt again. The rules don't stop applying when you become successful. If anything, they become even more applicable. And so, I need to figure out what's wrong with my belief systems and my paradigm and my skills and my talents and how I'm being held back so I can get to the next level. Because trust me, and I'm honest with you, it's just as painful to be stuck here as it is to be stuck here. Maybe not entirely. It's less painful to make $1 million a month than $1,000 a month. But I've been stuck at that sort of 8-figure mark, like $1 million a month now for quite a while. And I promise you, it's just as painful to plateau at like $1 million a month than it is at like $10,000 a month. It really is, especially when you care so much about growth. And, I always thought, stupidly, I was trying to bridge a gap in circumstance or situation. So, when I was trying to become successful, I went from 0 a month to 10K a month to 100K a month to 250K a month to 500K. I always thought I'm bridging this financial gap and that's how I'm tracking my progress. But really, when you look behind the situation, the circumstance, the number, or the reality, you find a person. And this is how it started. So this person here could make $0 a month, basically. And then there's a picture of me at 10K a month and then 100K a month. And what happens is, yes, on the surface level, externally, it looks like I'm leveling up my financial situation. But what I'm really doing is leveling up my identity and my character. And it's the identity or character that makes that change happen. Okay? It's simple. The only way I could grow and make more money and achieve my next goal was to change myself. When you look at someone's life, Whether you're looking at their financial situation, their relationships, their health, etc., you must understand that behind the life, behind the weight or the dollars or the love is a person. And that person created that life and that situation and circumstance. The only way to level up and make more money or succeed is to become the person capable of doing it. And I figured this out real fucking early, and I'm glad I did, because when I was making $0 a month, like, I was miserable. But instead of focusing on trying to make more money or trying to grow my business, I focused on trying to grow myself and become he who can. And it worked. And it's a bloody miracle that it did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sat here telling you that it works with this much conviction, this much confidence. And here is a picture of me at every stage of this journey. And you can see maybe little slight physiological differences in my hairline or my body or my face shape or whatever. But I'm the same dude. It's only been 10 years. 10% of my life, 15% of my life. Hopefully a little bit more than that, but you get the point. So everyone has this stuff wrong. We don't achieve goals, we achieve characters, identities, and self-images. It's through the achievement of a new self that our goal manifests as a byproduct. Your identity and sense of self is the product, and your situation is the byproduct. You become the person that can, then because you can, you do. People produce their own reality. You are the cause, the goal is the effect, okay? This inverted nature of goal accomplishment is what everyone in the modern day society has got wrong. I've had to read, by the way, I've gone deep for this shit for you. I've had to read about the dreams of 20th century psychoanalysts to figure this stuff out. I've read Jung, I've read Freud, I've read all of the philosophers, all the psychologists. I've spent thousands of hours researching this stuff to make sure it's right. And it's not common knowledge, and it takes a hell of a lot of digging to unearth, let alone understand. But I hope I've articulated this clearly and concisely enough to raise your consciousness. This has not been an easy video to make. All right, these ideas, articulating them in a cohesive, simple manner that is broadly understandable without tangenting. It's not easy. And I'm hoping you can appreciate that, but I hope it's been worth it, because I really can change your life with this stuff. You cannot be yourself and go after your goal, because the truth is that if you were the person capable of achieving it, you'd have done it. You must let go of who you are to become the person you need to become. Sticking to your roots means sticking to your current reality. Being true to yourself means any new version required must be fake. People have got this so backwards, and in case you can't tell, it pisses me off a bit that this isn't taught in schools. If I was in charge of the school system, the first thing I would teach kids when they're old enough to comprehend the miracle of psychology is this. I'd be like, look guys, you can be anything you want and more. You just have to decide what you want and then ask yourself, who would be able to achieve that? And then just off you go. Go and become that person. We get this in video games, which baffles me, because if you play a video game, let's say you load into a video game and you want to try and defeat the level 100 dragon, right? And you log into the game and you're level 1. If you go and try and defeat that dragon, which could be your goal, then you're not going to defeat the dragon. Pretty obvious. So what do? Well, you go and train your character. You do quests, you find items, you level up. And then what will happen is you'll get to a point where you actually can defeat the dragon because your character's so strong and you have the right weaponry and the right prayers and the right magic and stuff. And then you go and you defeat the dragon. And you probably defeat it quite easily because you've trained so hard. In games, it makes sense. But for some reason in life, people don't think about it in the same way. You simply can't chase your goal and believe the following. We've read these statements through here. Now, this comes back to a harsh truth. There is a 0% chance of you achieving what you want to achieve, but I'll tell you who can. So here is the silver lining. Here is the saving grace. Here is the knight in shining armor riding in on horseback with a trumpet. I will tell you who can achieve success, and that is the becoming self. Drum roll, please. Curtains closed. Let's have it. This idea is just creme de la creme of, I don't want to call this self-improvement or personal development, because I think we're past that point. I think we've crossed the Rubicon when it comes to self-help here. But this is such a beautiful idea. So here's the problem that you might be thinking about, and it's understandable. And this is in your voice. So Charlie, you're saying that my life is my fault. But surely then, if it's all my fault, I'm screwed. I'm not a successful person. I don't have successful person beliefs, and my paradigm is all fucked up and ruined. If my percentage chances of success are 0, then what the hell's the point in carrying on? Now, fair questions. Now, I haven't got to this point in the video with this much passion and vigor without a solution for you. So I have good news for you, because there is another self inside of you, one that is latent and requires a little bit of nurturing. So this component of your unconscious, of your psyche, this growth component, creates these goals. And it's the reason that you're listening so intently to this video. And it's the reason that you've done the action items. It's the reason you've invited friends to join the community. It's the reason that all these things that you're doing that you wouldn't have done before, you're doing because you have this growth element. And if you want to feed the growth element, by the way, which you absolutely should, then do the action items I tell you to do. And another cool thing is if you invite your friends to the program, it reconfirms that part of your identity, which means that you basically solidify it and it will accelerate your success. And that's a roundabout way of me asking you to invite people. I don't really gain anything because obviously this, you know, the price of this thing, right? Anyway, you get the point. So think of the becoming self like a fetus in the womb, but it's kind of smart. The becoming self, it can't talk, it cannot use words, and you didn't even know it existed until now. The only way that the becoming self can communicate with you is desire, dreams, and goals. So in your psyche, let's just say you have this little component called the becoming self. And if this is your psyche or yourself, right, all these belief systems and all of this, you know, this crap in your brain, then a little small speck is your becoming self. But it's quite loud and it can't communicate to you through words or through thoughts. It just creates your dreams and it creates your desires and your goals. And think about it. Why do you have a goal? Where does that bloody thing come from? It doesn't just pop out of nowhere. There must be a deep, latent, hibernating piece of your psyche that is desperate for its potential to be developed. Most people, when they experience the psychological phenomenon of dreams and goals, they push them down and they regard them as silly or impossible, when in reality, it's a deep part of them trying to communicate that it wants to come to light. And so, you know, if the cosmos of your psyche is this big ocean of blue, then there's a little speck of land in the middle of the ocean of your psyche, and it's the becoming self. And the becoming self is who you would need to become to achieve the goal you want. I mean, how cool is this of an idea? The only way to achieve your goal is by developing the becoming self. It's like a tiny, small little ember with the potential to burst into this raging fire of psychology if nurtured and tended to. It's basically raw potential. And this is freaking awesome, right? So you have yourself and you have your becoming self. And if you start to nurture it, which means you understand the goal and you talk to the goal and you talk to the dream and you sit down with the goal and the dream and your thoughts and you say, Mr. Goal, Mr. Dream, you have been sent here by a latent force of my psychology. What are your demands? And then the goal will communicate, obviously is a metaphor, right? The goal will communicate to you like, okay, well, you know, I want to exist. You know, the reality you want to exist could be 10K a month, could be a good body, could be a wife, whatever the hell. I want to exist as the goal. And in order for you to have me exist and to experience me and the happiness that comes with me, you need to sacrifice a lot of things about yourself. And here's a big list of belief systems that you need to develop and a big list of things you need to change about yourself for me and you to exist in harmony. That's kind of what a goal basically says to you, right? And what happens is if you actually take that on board and you listen to the goal and you start changing yourself in accordance with it, then your becoming self starts to expand. And the becoming self, it starts to take up space and something strange happens in your psyche. It starts to sort of envelop yourself and you start changing and you start becoming. And your goal will inform you of who you need to become. And as you nurture the becoming self and start to let it manifest, your self literally changes. And the becoming self takes up more and more space in your psyche. So you start, funnily enough, becoming. You start actually like developing and changing. And what happens after a while, over time, as you listen to this goal and you nurture this little goal and you take this ember and you apply kindling to it and you breathe the flames and you fan the flames and you let it expand, what happens is what was becoming has become. And you become a completely new person. And this is how you change. It all just starts with this little speck of dust, this little idea, this little, do you know what? I really want to make some money. I really want to become successful, or I really want to get into shape, or I really want to run that Ironman, or, I really want to learn how to play golf. It can be anything, right? But usually for you, it's financial, right? So it starts off with this small thing and, you listen to it and you start listening to its criteria. When you have a goal, it sets demands. It's like a negotiation. And the goal will tell you, This is who you need to become. This is what you need to believe. This is what you need to change. And those are my demands. And without those, you're not going to have me. That's what a goal does, is it negotiates with you. And if you're willing to let go of yourself and, quote unquote, air quotes, kill yourself or parts of yourself, then magical things start to happen. And the more of you that you shed and kill off, the more room there is for this becoming thing to start growing. And it kind of, it grows and grows. And then what happens is you develop a new self, and that becomes yourself. And the cool thing is it then happens again. This doesn't go away. This little, it's like a psychological cycle. It just continuously bubbles up and repeats. And what happens is your becoming self starts again. And so once you've become someone new, and you've got this, what would happen at this point is your goal has been achieved, basically. So you're making 6 figures, multi-6 figures, or you're successful, you're a millionaire, whatever the hell, and it happens again. So this could be you. Maybe you're making 4K a month, and that's your first goal. It's just to make a decent full-time income online, and you achieve that. And what will happen is, because you've reinforced and positively gratified this piece of your psyche, this evolutionary becoming need. It's so latent, but it's there. And if you listen to it and develop it, it will do it over and over and over again. And it's kind of a bitch because you can't really get rid of it. And I found that, at least. But you'll become the person you want to become, and it will happen again. And you'll get this little urge to grow again or get to the next level, right? And I can show you this in how it worked in my life. So here's me making $1,000 or $0 a month, right? Working full-time as an apprentice. No idea what's going on. Here I am in my sister's art shed making cold calls for my first agency, 2 hoodies on because I can't afford heating and I'm freezing, right? Terrible times. But I wanted to make 10K a month. And if you just look at this, if we just zoom in here, look at this little speck. Who's that? That is me capable of making 10K a month. This version of me that was just latent, just sitting there waiting to manifest. And, it was leading the way. And what started happening is the becoming self started to grow. And, it grew a little bit more, and I started becoming a little more than I was, and then bang, I was like this new, and I look a little bit traumatized in this video, like I'm about to get my head chopped off or something, but, the point is there. Like, you can see what the difference. I mean, it's not that obvious, right? But, at this point, you can see the books that I've read in the back, and you can see the whiteboards, and you can see my goals, and like I'm being attentive and stuff. And, I became this person. And what happened is I started making 10K a month. And I was like, I think I was like 19 or something, late 18s, early 19s, in terms of my teen years. And I started making 10K a month. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've got my agency. I'm making 10K a month. It's great. And then I wanted to get to 100K a month. I remember it very well. And there's this becoming self thing again. And I started nurturing it, and I started asking myself, who do I need to become to make 100K a month? Okay, I need to learn how to manage, get better at client results. I need to learn money. I need to learn skills. I need to get rid of all these belief systems about it being all about me, and I need to build a team. And what happened is this little becoming self again started to grow and grow and grow, and then bang, there I am, making 100K a month. I've got the dogs out. I apologize for that. But I'm making 100K a month. And it's crazy how this works, because I became this person and started making the money. And this has continued to me and really through me, every single financial milestone I've ever hit, every single business transformation or transition. The change wasn't in income, it was in me. And, you can see this little bit here, making 100K a month. Here's the 250K a month becoming self. And it's still happening to me now. Constant state of flux, change, evolution, and becoming. Cool thing is I can look back at this and I can look at pictures of myself that I took at the time I was making that money. And you can visualize what the next person would look like. And, you can project your understanding of the physical image of the human body onto this abstraction of the self. Truth is, what I look like doesn't really matter, right? But it's what's underneath the hood here that really matters, right? And, this is me right now. So I'm making $1 million a month, right? I'm at the 8-figure level. And inside of me right now is this becoming self that wants to get to multi-8 figures. So the 2 mil a month, the 3 mil a month. And I got to tell you, it's pretty bloody hard, like getting from the next level. But then again, that's just a belief system. And the only reason that I find it hard to make multi-8 figures is because I'm not yet the person that can easily do it. There will come a time in the future, I promise you this, if I live long enough, in the next couple of years, where I sit down and I say, God, multi-8 figures is easy. But the reason I find it hard now is because I'm not the person who can find it easy yet, right? A business is an opportunity to experience personal expansion. And that's really all it is, okay? The becoming self is an incredibly powerful idea. Who you are is not who you have to be, as evidenced by my multiple transformations over the years. Change is possible. It's entirely possible to undergo complete psychological overhaul and to rewire your relationship with the world and completely shift your reality. And believe me, as someone who's done it, it is bloody possible. The self does not exist, all right? This identity thing that you've got, it's not really real. It's just you holding on to a collection of abstract, intangible narratives and stories of the past. Now, psychologists knew this. You know, Jung figured this one out. Like, a lot of people knew this, but in the 100 or so years that we've had psychology, the message has been lost and people don't understand this anymore. Imagine yourself as wet clay. It can be remolded into anything, shaped into anything you want. All you have to do is to be willing to crush it. Is be willing to crush what you've mistakenly built by accident without realizing it so you can rebuild it. And you want to accept that who you are right now is a result of your own blind accidents. Every belief, every shred of identity, it's all you're doing and it was all you. And equipped with this knowledge and knowing it's on you, with conscious effort, we can begin to reshape and remold who you are into someone more capable. And I'll put it simply, it's time to become he or she who can. It's time to develop and design a self and identity and character that can easily achieve your goal and just to basically evolve into him or her. And there'll be more on this in the next video, but that's everything for Identity Ignition, and I'll see you in the next one.